Um, I've been preceded by two very eloquent speakers who have backed up everything that they've said with a lot of data, which I don't have. So what I'm going to do is talk about a business model, and I'll tell you what that is about. And I'm going to give you my personal take on it. It's a subjective presentation. There would be many views, and this is one of the views which I hold in this area. So I'm going to talk to you today about web exclusive brands, and I'm going to try and explain for those who may want to know what they are and why should you go this route, this business model. Why should you be adopting something like this? What could you expect as possible results? What would be the challenges that you might face? And what are the opportunities there, basically? So basically, from a very macro level, we are plunging right into examining options of how you could possibly go different ways of going through in the internet business. My take is from the fashion industry. I've spent my life in the fashion industry, and even on the online business experience that I have is in the fashion industry. So again, there will be a cast of fashion in everything that I talk about. Fashion and lifestyle is what I'd like to say. It is exactly 2 years from now that I was one of you guys sitting over there thinking about internet. And I was thinking, I've done this retail for many years now. Now, what is this whole thing about e-commerce? What is this new thing coming up which really excited me? And I used to come to conferences like this, and I used to sit and I used to hear all the data churned out by all the people who know so much about the business, and there were stalwarts who would talk about how they suggest we go about our businesses. So I learned a lot, and I'm happy that there are some of you here today who are interested in setting up an online business, and I would want to encourage all of you. So with that, I'll move on to trying to explain what is a web exclusive brand. So it's basically no great shakes. It basically implies, it's a nomenclature, it implies that you're selling only online. And if you're a brand, or you are even not a brand today, you're just a private label, it's basically trying to say that you are not available anywhere else. So the combination of the two things, not available or distributed anywhere else, only online, is what a web exclusive brand is all about. It's basically trying to say if you're exclusive and if you're on the web, you're trying to create some sort of monopoly in terms of what is your take and what products you are able to put in the market are exclusive to you, and therefore you're the monopolist of that. So the big question really is, why would you want to go this way? Why would you want to even go in this route? What are the advantages, and what are some of the concerns that come up in this particular route, which you ought to be careful about? So for that, I thought I'll just lead you through the obvious 2-3 steps through which this industry has gone through. And I'm going to take a take on, again, fashion. I heard over the day that there are some people over here who are from the fashion or the manufacturing or from the whole apparel industry over here. So this is about basically from the apparel fashion industry. So for me, where it began, because I just came into this world just 2 years ago, and I got excited about it. And it was all about the guild model when it all started. There were a couple of big businesses that were going on and many more who tried. It was basically backstock liquidators. What they did was they went and collected all the backstock from all the brands that were existing already in India. And of course, they hit all the exporters and manufacturers to see what they could get out of there. And they found a model where they could entice the consumer to come and buy deeply discounted merchandise online. So this is a fabulous moment, I think, in the Indian e-commerce or Indian online retail, because this was needed to begin with. The consumer was wary about online, and they did not understand very much about the online business. And here were these retailers who were ready to sell them very well-priced merchandise at half the cost with what they'd buy it in the stores otherwise. And they saw that there was nothing to lose, really. So basically what this model did, it led to trial. Trial is an extremely important part of growing the industry, trying to get people to experiment with this new channel which had opened up for them. So this was a fabulous model, and it came and opened up. I believe initial numbers were gigantic, the trial was huge, and one thing led to the other, and today we talk about some 15 million people who are now actually buying online. Those are big numbers that we talk about today. The problems that keep coming up in these sort of models is that there is no brand who manufactures goods to create backstock inventories. So typically, backstocks are either mistakes or they are unassorted merchandise. So in the same way, an exporter does not plan to sit with merchandise after his shipment is gone. So there's something gone wrong always, because of which these kind of inventories get built up across the world. So we found that there was no regular supply of something like this. You couldn't build mega businesses, definitely not in India, which is, as somebody also said, is still trying to develop its offline retail presence in the country. There are very few brands over here. It's very unlike in the US, where branding or retail has been going on for much more than half a century. So there wasn't that kind of supply that could come in over here in the Indian context, and therefore there was a supply chain issue. The other thing was that as long as the customer got what they got at a low price, they took it, and they were not interested in coming back to this site for anything else but for more discounted merchandise. So the repeat proposition was based on a discount, but the ability of the retailer to provide goods which could be deep discounted was becoming lesser and lesser. So there was a problem in this model, yet it opened up the marketplace. This was closely followed or overlapped by what I call the multi-brand retailer model. A multi-brand retailer model is a step ahead of the one we just saw. Here we're talking about fresh goods. These are fresh seasonal goods. There's no question of them being backstocks. They're just what you may be buying in the big stores or on offline, parallelly to being exposed here on online businesses. The proposition, again, we've heard that being said today, is about creating accessibility. The classic story about how brands, it's extremely expensive to build offline stores. These are high capital consuming setups. Inventories get distributed all over the place. So there are lots of problems in that business. So here you have, so they cannot be multiplied and planted just about everywhere, and definitely not in the entire country where the consumers are scattered. So retailer model was a multi-brand model, which was to provide access to consumers perhaps living in the hinterland, in the tier 3, tier 4 cities, which were not accessible to the brands, so to speak. But what started happening was that the bulk of the consumption that started happening was coming from the metros or the next big cities. Tier 2 cities, so metros to tier 2 cities were the places where the bulk of the business was coming from. And in these cities, these brands or these offers were already existing. So the reason of convenience, which was the other big thing that the businesses were built on, was not seen as the consumer as convenient enough to lose the touch and feel option of offline, and therefore needed more reason to buy from these sort of retailers. And then again, we got the discounts and the free shippings starting to happen again over there. So now it started off with an access and convenience proposition, and it ended up with, or it went largely in a discount area. So all of last year, we've been seeing a commotion in the market where retailers have been offering deep discounts and discounts on every transaction that they have been doing. They're burning cash, they're delivering top lines, but we're still not seeing any loyalty. The reason for the customer to come back for convenience, and the reason for the customer to come back for accessibility has really not yet taken over. Having said that, I don't believe that those are not good propositions, and there will be a time that will be valued more by the customer. So basically, these types of businesses, both of them, they ran into a lot of trouble, and there was commotion all through last year in the market, where to begin with, there were low gross margins planned. So the planned margins were low either because you were buying back stocks and you were selling them extremely cheap, or you were trading in brands where the brands gave you a 30% to maybe, if you're very big, a 40% margin on the MRP of the products. Now, in a scenario where you're passing 10 or 20% off to a consumer who's as a discount, then given the taxation and given the cost of shipping and returns, and it just stopped making sense somehow or the other. There was just no maths that was happening over there. We know transactions which run, I mean, the bulk of the so-called online e-commerce transactions, again, keeping aside the ticketing and that kind of email, we're talking about product sales over here, runs into negative margins per sale, per transaction. That's the truth of the business as I have seen it so far. And part of the reason is not only that you have a low margin to begin with, on your low gross margin to begin with, the other half of the reason is, and I have not seen anybody talk a lot about it, is the cost of acquiring customers online. So the gentleman who preceded me did touch upon the point, but to set up a store online is perhaps the easiest part. Most fashionists would come at it from a point of view of designing a fabulous looking site. But there's so much beyond that needs to be learned and needs to be executed. So for example, you're just one of those million stores in the World Wide Web. So how do people know about you? How do you create awareness? It's a hidden secret. Nobody knows it unless you plunge into it, that to create awareness is a giant cost on this channel. You know, in an online business, to create awareness, to get visitors to come to your store, and to get them to buy, there is a huge cost. Now that cost depletes any margins or any capital that's left in the organization. And if you do acquire customers at such humongous costs, negative margin costs, then the least you want to do is to get them to come back to buy again, because the whole planning goes that the life cycle value of the consumer is what is going to ultimately deliver you and your business to profitability. But if your proposition is based only on a discount, the day you stop discounting, that is the day the customer doesn't come back to you. And that is also having, it's only if they will come back for discounts if they've made a good experience with you. So what happened in the last 2 years, everybody thought it's an easy ride. Let's just go get into e-commerce business. We're going to burn a lot of money because there are lots of VCs there who are ready to pump money into this industry. And yeah, we're going to, the minimum asks were 5 million. And if you were not asking for 5 million, you had a problem with your business plan. You know, this is how the industry had evolved in the last 2 years. So in all of this madness, as me and my partners, we experienced in the business environment, online business environment, we were kind of groping for some method to be able to not fall into the various traps that we'd seen the market fall into. So we were looking for this great model where we wanted the customers to come back again and again. It's called a repeat and referral model for us. They should come back and buy again and again. We want that whole lifetime value if we have to spend anything on customer acquisition. And we want to sell at full price. We don't want to discount. So how are we going to get this whole thing together? So that was the challenge that we were facing. So this was the magic recipe that we made up for ourselves. And we thought that this is the magic recipe that we want to give a try to. So we said, your consumer-facing proposition has to be brilliant. There's no question. Any amount of discounts is not going to help you if what you're going to sell is not going to be something that is absolutely drool-worthy. The customer must find that product so good that there should be an impulse purchase right then and there. There is just nothing that you can get away with that. You can't discount and expect the customer to come back again and again if your merchandise is average, ordinary, or even below par. But good merchandise is not good enough. It's not like you just have fabulous merchandise and everything is going to take off. The consumer must feel good about consuming you. The consumer must feel good about connecting with you. So you have to create an umbrella of what we call a brand. You have to create something under which there is a kind of a identification, a differentiation, an aspirational touch feel look to the whole environment, which makes the consumer feel that, hey, there's a good product here, and these guys, I'm connecting with them. There's something about them that I like. If it's in the business of fashion, it could be how I want to look or feel, or what I think is aspirational in that area. So there has to be something larger than the product to hold the package together, is how we felt. And finally, there had to be a value equation. We've had few people talk about value equations today. Versus a discount, you have to have a value equation. That doesn't mean you have to have cheap prices or expensive, or you can't have high prices. No, the value perception, forget about equation, it is a perception issue. So as people, some of you guys are over here, there is a sourcing cost, but the pricing is a completely different story. Pricing in sourcing cost into X does not translate into a pricing. You have to always worry about the value equation, perception, what would the customer feel about this, and that is related to the competitive environment, whether offline or online or anywhere else. So the value equation has to be perfect. And in our cocktail, which we called Loyalty on the Rocks, we said, let's skip the discounting. We don't want to discount. That's not something we want to get into. And we pass that. It gets you drunk, but we don't want to be drunk right now. Yeah. So we said, if we do this right, we hope to create, as we call, helplessly loyal customers. We wanted them to feel that way about us. We wanted that stickiness. We did not want to have to keep on getting new customers, that huge acquisition cost, keep on getting new customers to come and buy from us, and not trying to leverage the customers who've already shopped and gone from us. So with that magic recipe, enters, in our sense, what we call the web-enabled exclusive brands. Now, we decided that this brand that we would create, or what we would do, would be exclusively sold on the web. Now, will it be sold somewhere else tomorrow? We don't know, and we don't care. We're just trying to focus entirely on this medium. We are all passionate about what we do, and we want to create a brand online to begin with. So what do you have to do over there? The moment you get into the brand territories, just remember that a single brand cannot address everybody and anybody. A brand, by definition, means a lot to some. It can't be everybody and anybody. So you have to define your TG. So who's your customer? Who are you going to sell to? So typically, the matrices evolve around, let's say, gender, age group, geographies, and most importantly, psychographics, which is sometimes missed out. So we say that these four together, you have to kind of slice and dice the marketplace and say, this is the section that I'm going to chase. So the moment you know which is the section you want to chase, you're going to have to understand them. You're going to have to figure out what gets them going, what's on their mind, what are their aspirations, how do they behave, what do they want. The whole thing, you've got to get to know this customer. You've got to get your insights out from this, target base. And basis that, you've got to now create your brand, which is supposed to address those various aspects of this consuming class. So whether it is your brand positioning, I want to behave like a Madonna, or I want to behave like an X, whatever it may be, the imagery, is it super cool, is it classic, acceptable, whichever way you think your consumer would be attracted to you, you've got to invest a lot in creating a brand identity, brand ethos, brand experience, which has to run through everything that you do. Of course, the most important thing is that any product that you offer has to be unique. It has to be something that has been crafted specifically for this particular brand, and that this merchandise is very attractive to this consuming set. It may be very attractive merchandise, but if it is not relevant to your TG, the segment that you have created, then it's not going to be worth anything. So you've got to invest a lot in your unique offer in terms of product. And of course, I've already talked about the value pricing point of view. We believe in everyday fair pricing. We think everyday fair pricing is believable. High prices with discounting, consumer feels that they're being taken for a ride. So we said no, it's everyday fair price is what we want to build. So if one focuses on these various aspects, then one believes that you create lasting values which will never get created by fast movements of discounts. But there are a lot of challenges that come up. So it's easy to say that, okay, I'm going to have unique product. I'm going to entice the consumer in many more ways than just discounts. So we're going to win the battle. No, you're probably not. There's a huge amount of work that happens in addition to any other retail or trading business that is done online or even offline. So here you basically begin with the first half of the business. You have to design your product, and then you have to manufacture your product. Now, if you're a retailer, if you're selling a multi-brand, products, then you start with sourcing these products from the manufacturers and designers of these products. So this actually opens up another battlefront for the business, which is the design and manufacturing of products. And it's not so simple because at least in the initial years, your product is untested. So you're investing in inventories, you're taking a call, you're putting your eggs in a certain basket, and it may be right and it may be wrong. So it's a huge new challenge that comes up in the business. Of course, building a brand, there are many books and many seminars available in building a brand, but building a successful brand is a completely different thing. So is your brand going to succeed? Well, that only time will tell. That only the customers will tell. So that's your other challenge, and it is a huge task. I talked about inventory. Inventory is all about unknown sales. If I buy Adidas shoes of a certain kind, of a certain price, Adidas gives me the entire sales history of that kind of product. Or if I start stocking I don't know, a Mango blouse, I would be able to get from Mango the data on how many such blouses have sold in the last 6 months in India. But here you have no information. So it's basically pioneering effort. So it's a large risk, the inventory that you build up. The other take from this is the more you narrow your focus, which means on your target audience. If your target audience is narrow, your cost of customer acquisition increases. So it's not like you can send out 200 emailers to just about anybody and everybody comes and everybody checks out your website. No, because for 90% of them, you may not be relevant. So if you start targeting your audience finer and trying to reach out to people who you think should be looking at your product, niche marketing, then the cost of customer acquisition also increases marginally. Having said that, there are many other reasons why it balances it off also. And last but not the least is anytime you reduce your vision, you reduce your target audience, because now you're going to build a brand, there are issues on scalability which have to be very clear. So how large a business do you want to build in the next few years or even in the next 5 years? What is your appetite? What is that appetite with which, and why are you coming to this business altogether? So if you're chasing giant scales, then perhaps it's not a good idea to go into branding in a segmented manner, the way I've been talking about. But whatever you do, this model certainly doubles the odds, as I've said, of failure, because there are just far too many ends that you open up in your business for experimentation. So if those be the challenges, what are some of the things that would help you overcome these challenges? Some of the musts that are extremely important, I would say, that you make sure and tick off on your list of things that you've got to get right. So it's extremely important that the founding team, which means I'm going to talk promoters here, between them, they must have all these skills. All the right skills. So even if they didn't have one employee, they should be able to think through and do everything themselves. The rest can be operations. But the fact is that the founding members should bring all the skills. So this is not a business for one grand guy to come across and say, I'm going to create Amazon tomorrow. No, you've got to get skills of all kinds. So I came from traditional retail, so I had no idea about how you acquire customers online. What is marketing online? What's digital marketing? There'll be a version of what is digital marketing by Google. There'll be another version by Facebook. And ultimately, it's all double Dutch for people who don't understand it. And it's one of the biggest challenges. And so on and so forth. Technology, huge battle to fight over there. Technology is a huge segment in success parameter in this business. So your team, the few people who you partner and get into this business with, must bring in all the skills. You will not have the time, you would not have the resources to hire expensive people. Expensive people will not join you. The most important thing is that you're not getting into an e-commerce business, you're not getting into an online business. Remember, you're getting into a business. And in every business, very simply, you have to get your consumer-facing proposition right. So why? Always ask the question, what is in it for the consumer? Why should they chuck every other competition out of the basket and come and consume from you? And keep returning and consuming again and again, talk to their friends and tell them to go and shop there. There has to be something extremely strong. It's not going to be easy to build that. You have to focus and get that right as soon as you can. That's the most important thing in your business. I would further go and suggest that this is not a business you get into because you're into the valuation game, because this is a quick to get rich, some sort of a story that you've heard from somebody. No, there are no quick riches. The time is gone. The big bucks have been burnt. We've heard some investor sentiments over here today. So it's really about building a strong business and not getting into realizing your dream of quick money. Also, if you go into this business, somebody else said today, brand is a good way to go, but it's a long haul. Yes, it's a long haul, so your investor has to be patient. He has to understand the fact that you're into a business where you are building something from scratch. You're not into a trading business, so therefore he has to be patient. But on the other hand, not only do you want a friendly and patient investor, you want an investor who pushes you, who doesn't want to unnecessarily throw money, as we call it internally, at Google and Facebook transfer funds to Google and Facebook to be able to build a business. So those are some of the important things, but there are things that go beyond our control. So timing is a big issue. At what stage are you entering the business environment? So if I were to tell you today, the word is that the investor sentiment is low, which we also heard about earlier today. So the point is that there is not much money forthcoming in this business, in online business. Most investors have taken their bets already, and they are looking at safeguarding and promoting their investments. New investments are on the cold storage. They're waiting and watching, and the prognosis is that this year is going to be probably somewhere, it's going to last as it is. And of course, you always need luck on your side, and if you've got that, then you've got everything ticked off over here. Okay, so what could be some of these success matrices that result from a business model such as what I'm talking about? So I see web-exclusive brands really as destination shopping. Destination shopping is typically an environment where people come, at least returning people come, half made up minds on that they're going to shop. The new ones are experimenting, but the returning ones are half made up. So you should have higher conversion levels of consumers, of visitors coming to your site in a model such as this. You should have repeat, because if you don't have repeat, you've not been able to achieve anything at all. And I believe repeat loyalty is the crux of any business. You don't want to be canvassing for new customers every day. You want to get your customers back. You want to give them a good experience, and you want them to come back again. You want them to talk about. That's the organic traffic. That's free traffic. The cost of getting traffic on your site is humongous. The cost of converting a customer is humongous. So you want free traffic. So you want that word of mouth. It's not as though you get away without discounting at all. Then you have to do your promotions. You have to do some things to keep that excitement going, but it's more about advertising, or no, not even advertising. It's about marketing budgets rather than discount budgets that you talk about. And of course, you probably start with a decent gross margin, because gross margin, when it's a private label play, gross margins can be fairly high. It can be 60 to 70% in the fashion business. So those kind of gross margins are unheard of in trading businesses. And ultimately, obviously, the net margins turn out right also. So the web exclusive brand business, the way we see it, made a lot of good business sense for us. And last but not the least, some ideas about where it could be applied and what could be done with it. So I may be wrong, but I do feel intuitively that to begin with, it's a fashion and lifestyle segment that can leverage this model to their advantage. I've talked about the skill of the founders, but the passion. Somebody said, don't get into the business because you want to get into e-commerce business. You should be primarily mad about getting into the business, in this case, of fashion or of lifestyle or whatever it is, or home goods, whatever it is. And then you consider your options and you say, oh, okay, should I go offline? Should I go online? What are my advantages and disadvantages? What is my customer-facing proposition? Customer-facing proposition has to be solid in either cases. And if you should choose to go with online, and there are certain advantages, having experienced both, there are certain advantages I see over here. Then it's important that you are not in the business for getting big and great at any cost. That bottom line is not an issue. You're just going to focus on the top line. All that doesn't work. You're just going to run for 6 months. You're going to burn your money. You're going to get another series fund on some big story, but ultimately it all stops. The customer has to respond to you. So this is not a business anymore. It may have been 2 years ago for a quick exit and $1 million in the bank. Today it is basically, You have to get into this business for the right reasons, whether you're coming from offline to online, or you're coming from being a manager and an executive to trying to start your own business. Be careful, get into the business for the right reason, choose your channel, and yes, this is yet another channel. It's nothing more than another channel. And get into the business if you really want to get into it for the right reasons and be passionate about doing business. That's it. Thank you, and I'm ready for any questions that you may have. Hello.
Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Kunal. Thanks a lot for this presentation. It was actually a refresher after a lot of numbers that we've been seeing since morning. I have a question. You have a huge experience in the offline retail, and the category has been very different from what you're doing in DonebyNone in terms of age group, in terms of the fashion. It was purely or majorly ethnic, and in terms of price points as well, which actually has been successful. At least as viewers we can see that. Why did you choose to a category and an age group which is very contrary to what you have in the offline business? Did the slice and dice psychography study that you did it reveal to this kind of a customer?
Okay. Just like what's successful in the US doesn't have to be successful over here. Just like what was successful offline doesn't need to be successful over here. So when I tried to get into this new channel, new focus area, I looked at the internet usage. I looked at who is the customer, who is the person who spends maximum time online, and it's no brainer to figure out that these are younger people. Yeah, so we've honed into an age group that was younger. So the whole issue is the moment you get into the segmentation of who is the lowest hanging, in this case, who's the lowest hanging fruit. So once we got that, then we understand them. We try to figure out what they want. Now, if they wanted to wear salwar kameez, we'd be happy to service them with salwar kameez. But what we found, which is obvious, that they were not interested in salwar kameez. So I, as a marketeer, cannot shove salwar kameez down their throats if that's what they don't want. So you have to provide them. And you can't come with baggage, and you can't say, but then the choice is yours. If you start with a segment, or if you do come with a baggage, let me think that through. And you are in the business of salwar kameez outside, there is another different customer who you can target your salwar kameez to. So therefore, your TG gets pre-decided, and now you're extending your reach of your brand in that case.
Hello,
Thanks.
Mr. Misra. Hi. One of the other challenges which private label creation online space faces that if you plan a catalog of say 200 SKUs a season, when eventually you test your product online, you're selling minimum of highest of 25 to 30% of the styles which actually push online. And remaining 75% of the exposures which you create every season becomes very difficult to liquidate them if you keep only your focus on online as a channel. So how to deal with the number of design exposures and keeping your inventory levels correct about that?
Okay. I'll be honest, my experience is absolutely the opposite of what you've just said in the concluding sentence. I used to be going crazy about inventories and back inventories and what to do with them offline. The whole issue was offline, where inventories were distributed over 100, 200, 300,000 points of sales, physical inventories. There is no way. It's all utopian to think that you're going to Chennai to Bangalore, you're going to shift styles because that's selling better in Bangalore and lesser in Chennai. It doesn't happen. Things just rot in the stores. They don't even get liquidated in backstocks. You just fill go-downs with backstocks, and you don't know what to do about it. On the contrary, if I talk about this point, any number of styles which may not have worked And we hope and try always to keep that at the very lowest possible. That 70% number was a little startling for me. You should have a good business should not have failures of more than 10%. And that too should be around very experimental products.
Sorry to interrupt you in between. The styles which I'm talking to you about are the very good fast movers in the offline space, right?
Yeah.
And similar catalog, when it is exposed online, there are hardly 25 to 30% which actually.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I
pushes
was
so
going
quickly
another
out there.
direction. All right. No
So
problem. Then
I'm
you've
talking
not,
about, we are actually into business of Indian ethnic wear, right?
right.
And we do almost around 200 styles after every 2 months.
Yeah. So basically two things. Firstly, the consumer online is much younger, and they may not be connecting with your product. The other thing is the inventories or the customers or the visitors that the online players where you are putting your goods, they may be not driving the kind of customers that you require. So if you are to put your products in a store, whether offline or online, that does not attract the kind of consumers who are attracted to your product, then you're going to have a problem. But if you hone into the right customer for your product, because your product is pre-decided, then you have to find a platform where they have that customer floating. Chances are that there are lesser of those because the internet consumer is younger, or the person who spends a lot of time on the internet is younger.
But the moment ticket size goes beyond 800, it becomes really difficult to sell online.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all.
I'm experiencing this with my brand, so.
Okay, you have to experiment. It's a learning curve. Why should it be at 800 only? Why not at higher prices? As long as the value equation is right, perception is right, your brand positioning is right, and your adjacencies are right. Because your adjacencies may be driving you in another way.
All right.
Yeah. Are there any more questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, guys.